Howdy, howdy. Welcome on in to the Oh, no.
Oh, gosh.
I guess it just...
We really are back.
Welcome into the pre-show before the free show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in to your official,
Capital O.
Thanksgiving postgame show.
Correct.
Right. I think this is the Thanksgiving postgame show of record.
Mm-hmm.
I think people trust us to bring you the analysis.
Honestly, I feel like they don't trust us for much, but if there was one thing they would trust us for, it would be the Thanksgiving postgame show.
That's an excellent point. That's an excellent
Which
way to
I'm
put
okay
it.
with, to be very clear.
This is the Thanksgiving postgame show. I'm Greg, that's Ashley. Thanksgiving. Delivered again.
Always
It is with great joy in my heart that I report as a journalist that Thanksgiving came through again. Every year we pile on more and more expectations. Every year we ask more and more of the best day of the year. And every year, Thanksgiving says,
Bet.
I got you. Bet is right. Bet. Okay. I have not talked to you about your Thanksgiving. This is true.
No.
This is actual, like, real.
Yeah,
most of this is scripted.
Yeah.
Even when we disagree. How was Thanksgiving?
Oh, it's fantastic. Genuinely fantastic. I hosted.
Yeah.
So it went well.
I know.
The food turned out fantastic. We ate basically right on time. I set it for 2. I think people were starting to serve their plates after the blessing at like 2:05, which were maybe a little bit more like 2:10. But for gap of hitting when you eat all of that food, that's pretty impressive. There's a lot worse that you can do than like 10 minutes.
Did you say 10 minutes?
Yeah.
No,
I was determined.
No, that's a bullseye.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
a bullseye.
So I was very, except when you're hosting, that's a stressful part of it is and everything was warm at the exact same time. I did one last
That's
we
tough.
stocked up the oven of everything that had been out
Warm
for
it
a
all
little
up.
while, got it all warmed up, everything was good and hot by the time. But you will be very, very, very happy to know 100% 2 thumbs up reviews on the spicy Cajun fried turkey.
Let's go.
Which is that's a gamble.
Absolutely,
That
it
is a gamble. That's an untraditional turkey. Sometimes people are not super into spice, but I felt like with the people that I had there, the spice wasn't what I was concerned about. Everyone said that's one of, if not the best turkeys that they've ever had.
Awesome. It delivered. Fantastic.
It rocked. I was very pumped that there was a glowing review about the turkey because I hyped it.
Oh,
Man,
yeah.
I hyped it, and I stood firm in it.
Yeah, like you stood up for the Cajun fried turkey, and you needed it to come through, and it did.
And one last thing, and then I want to hear about yours. My dad last year took both of the turkey legs, and he ate them.
That's
and
a power move.
He kept hyping it. Well, and it's after the fact. We let him sit for a day so that the Cajun juices can get like really marinated in the turkey leg. He kept typing it up, and I said, all right, I hosted this year, so I'm calling ISO on one of the legs.
Absolutely.
I was like, you can have the other one, but you've hyped it up so much, I got to try it. The next day, I ate the spicy Cajun turkey leg. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Like, I thought the rest of that turkey was good. That leg was insane.
I'm a dark meat guy. Like
Yep.
I like the dark meat on the turkey is best.
Insane. How was yours?
Thanksgiving was excellent. I did get this is a small aside. We flew up to St. Louis, and bless you.
Thank you.
And kids did great on the plane. Hank for the first and only time in his life said, "You're setting my alarm for 4:25 in the morning? That rocks." Like, I'm like, all right,
Did
buddy.
it still rock after the fact?
Yeah, he thought he was excited. Like, he was
Yeah.
excited to get on a plane and do the excitement. So we're flying. Kids are ground the plane. We land in St. Louis. We're just waiting to deplane. We're on like row 15 or whatever, and they're on like row 2. Whatever. They're getting off. It always takes time. Hank turns to me and goes, "That don't feel too good." Everything he had. All over me. All over me and him. Everything he had. Bleh. All of it. All over me. So that was. But if that's the worst thing that happens on a plane ride, honestly, and for Thanksgiving week it was. Yeah. Then it's all good. Thanksgiving Day was great. Hank was very into the parade for the first time. I think he was just very into it. And then football started. We cooked. My father-in-law did just a traditional turkey. It was fabulous. I'm trying to think of what the real stars of the show was. GBC, of course.
Always.
Per usual. It was excellent. There was nothing really like. I don't think there was anything non-traditional that they brought out. One thing that I think is interesting. I did my annual. I've turned this into a tradition on Twitter. Is my annual plate rates.
Oh yeah.
Is that if you send me a photo of your Thanksgiving plate, I'll rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. First of all, stunning number of people going with ham. Stunning number of people going with ham.
We do both.
Also, a stunning number of people just doing like barbecue, which, gotta be honest, don't hate.
I, for the first time this year, heard more people say that like Thanksgiving food is not their thing, and that
it hurts my heart a little bit, but
just blows my mind. At least not like some things I get. If sweet potatoes aren't your thing, not gonna
Brussels
judge
sprouts,
you.
you don't gotta
but
be
like
into Brussels sprouts.
everything,
Yeah, I know.
you don't like any. Eat a plate of mashed potatoes.
All right. Yeah. They did. So I've mentioned this before, but Max is allergic to eggs, and so my mother-in-law made a pumpkin cheesecake.
Oh yeah,
bro.
Did it rock?
Oh yeah. And then this is the finest compliment I could pay to my father-in-law. Lunch the next day. A1.
Oh, so good.
Exceptional stuff. It's Thanksgiving V2 Volume 2. That's great.
We left everything over at my place, so that way, because my dad and I went to Grandview Malakoff, and when we came back, that was the plan, was to literally do full Thanksgiving round 2. Like, got out the plates, did full send meal. So we got Grandview Malakoff, and then we went and just stuffed our face with more turkey. It rocked.
What a day.
The best
What a
day. Of the year. I want it to be again like now.
Congratulations to all of us on Team Thanksgiving. And now the wait begins. Hit the theme, Expo. Pickle! Hit the air sign. Yes, y'all! From the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Mothership here in beautiful Lewisville, Texas, it is Texas Football Today, a show that's already looking forward to next Thanksgiving.
Correct.
Starting our planning in about a week. My name's Greg Tepper. I'm the managing editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine. TexasFootball.com, a corresponding website. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. Whether you're watching us live at TexasFootball.com, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, all the places, or you'll listen to the podcast, which you can subscribe to on the podcast vendor of your choice. Either way, thank you for doing your part to support your local mediocre internet show. I am sitting over there at the helm today, making us sound good. She is the Duchess of the Dorks. She's the queen of Thanksgiving. She's Ashley Pickle.
I like that. That's high regard.
Is there? Yeah, I'll think about that. I don't know if I feel good about that. The Prime Minister of Thanksgiving. How about that? Okay. I don't know if I want to give you like you're born into this. Like you've earned this.
This is true. Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
You've earned this. The Prime Minister of Thanksgiving. Yeah. Ashley Pickle. Today is Monday, November 27th, 2023. Now, I need everybody to shield their ears a little bit because I'm about to say something that nobody likes, okay? 367 days until Thanksgiving.
Boo!
Because it's November 28th next year.
Yeah.
Like we snap back. It's a full week later. Oh, yeah.
It's over a year.
367.
God. That should be illegal.
We'll count you down, though. All right. This is the worst it's going to be, guys.
That's true. It only gets better from here.
That's the biggest number I'm going to say. 367. I think it's the biggest number I can ever say. Yeah, the 28th is the latest it can be. Although the 22nd, it can be the 22nd at times. Anyway, all that to say. Happy birthday to Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Oh,
it's
nice.
Episode 1699. Wow. Tomorrow. On today's show, folks, big show. We got Monday Morning Fallout. We're going to overreact to the football weekend. A lot to overreact to. Our overreactions will not include the coaching changes at Houston and at UTEP, nor will it include the non-coaching changes at Baylor and Rice. We'll talk about that as the week goes on, so just keep your powder dry. Then we're going to be joined by the head coach of the regional final bound Port Lavaca Calhoun Sand Crabs. Coach Richard Whitaker will join us live on the show. Back half the show, we'll talk a little bit about one of the coaching changes that did happen, as Texas A&M has made a hire in Mike Elko, but it wasn't without some drama. We'll talk about that coming up here at the back half of the program. Do we have first four through the door?
We sure do. It was Daniel Agnew, Andrew Christensen, jersey number 69, and
nice.
Salty Vet. Welcome in, fellas.
Welcome in, friends. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you spending a little bit of your Thanksgiving postgame with us. Pickle, hit the air raid siren time for Monday Morning Fallout. Monday Morning Fallout, where we overreact to the football weekend. Plenty to talk about, folks. Plenty to talk about. We'll start with my opening thought. Feasting on chaos. So there's a fair number of ways we can go about this. We'll talk about A&M's situation in a bit. But especially in the high school football ranks, the regional semifinal round, one of the great things about this round is that you get 2 full days of football. Friday, all day.
Literally all day.
10 a.m. to, I think there's a 7:30 kick. 10 a.m. to 7:30 kick. And then the next day you wake up, and I want to say the earliest game was 11. It was 11 all the way up to a 7:30 kick. And across the entire week, you had a number of games that I would categorize as certainly stunning and certainly surprising. One of them, I think we have to talk about the number one team in 3A Division I going down. Because Lorena not just beats Columbus, kind of handle Columbus.
Yeah.
In a big way. To knock off the team that was pretty consensus the team to beat in 3A Division 1. Well, now they're beat. That's done and dusted. They're on to the next one. That was one that I found to be particularly surprising. Down in the Rio Grande Valley, you had a huge upset with Brownsville Veterans Memorial knocking off PSJA North in an all Valley regional semifinal. I think that really speaks to the depth of the Rio Grande Valley this year. Now, I think Brownsville Veterans Memorial, that's certainly an upset. PSJA North looked like they had just been romping past people. Mm-hmm. But I do think that overall, when you take a look at it, that is a testament to the depth that you saw across the state of Texas. I thought that was particularly surprising. You had other games across the state that I think could be, I don't know if you want to categorize them as upsets, but because I don't know, you get this far, and I don't know if there's any teams that are left to be called quote-unquote Cinderellas, right? But you've certainly had some games across the state that shook up, that were bracket busters, right? A week after we talked all about how Lavernia knocked off Bernie and we were just stunned with the dominance that they had, well, San Antonio Davenport just goes, yeah, okay, bet, and knocked off Lavernia. That, I think, categorized as a surprise.
Belleville and Silsbee.
I think that is one. I picked Belleville. I've been on the Belleville train for a minute, but as far as margins are concerned,
61-7?
As far as margins are concerned, I don't think there's any doubt that that's a surprise.
I think it was a surprise that they went up 30-0 at the end of the first.
How about Lancaster over Longview? Fourth place Lancaster through to the regional final, knocking off their district rival in Longview and doing so on a walk-off field goal. That game certainly, I think, would be considered a surprise. Also surprise, San Antonio Piper. Comal ISD, we'll talk about them in a moment, knocks off Alamo Heights in the final game of the weekend. That game, I think, is surprising. And again, when you talk about just margins, how about Stephenville 7, Salina 3? Mm-hmm. Right? That's a wild, wild score. Jasper over Cuero, I think, would categorize in that chaos area. So when you take a look across, by the way, you also had some near misses. Munster was throwing into the end zone for the win against Albany. Across the state, overall, you had some real bracket busters. And it made it worthwhile to sit down and just enjoy the entire slate of games, all 88 of them across the state. It was a fun week of football. Time for Game of the Week. Jacksboro 49, Holiday 48 in overtime. This game was a wild one. As they go back and forth in the fourth quarter, Jacksboro scores and goes for two to tie it to force overtime. Mm-hmm. Holiday gets the ball, scores. Jacksboro on fourth and I want to say goal from the 11.
It was not a short one.
It was not a short one.
I don't know the exact yardage, but it was not short.
Lando Belcher fires a touchdown pass to, I think it's Caden Swan in the back of the end zone to pull them within one. They decide to go for two, and it's Belcher to Swan again for the win in a absolute just masterpiece of a high school football game.
Mm-hmm. I think Corey Hogue was there.
Jacksboro 49, Holiday 48. It's one of the games of the year. Just a spectacular performance. Am I overreacting? Is Texas A&M going to be looking for a new athletic director too? We're going to talk about this coming up here at the back half of the show. Texas A&M does have a new head coach in Mike Elko. Saturday night, you might have gone to bed thinking that they had a new head coach that wasn't Mike Elko and Mark Stoops. And then there was functionally a revolt.
Yep.
And then they pulled him. That's what happened, by the way. They might try to spin it, and they'll do a press conference to say that Mike Elko is always their first choice and that these media reports were wrong. That's not true. And Ross Bjork, the athletic director, really comes out of this not looking great.
No.
And all's well that ends well. And they got a guy we'll talk about, Mike Elko, in the back half of the show, but I don't know if there's a ton of confidence brimming around Ross Bjork in College Station right now.
No, and I think especially because, and maybe I'm just wrong, and maybe I was one of the only people shocked by this, but the initial Mark Stoops
Mm-hmm.
hire was one that I still felt like it was kind of out of left field a little bit. You know, like it was just kind of one of those that it's like, man, you're going to get turned down by him?
We're gonna talk about that in a little bit, because there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. I don't know if Mark Stoops turned them down. Certainly they're positioning it that way, or he's positioning it that way. But we'll talk about what really happened down there in College Station. But for us, Bjork has not been a great 48 hours. It's time for the Dudes Rock Dude of the Week. This week's Dudes Rock Dude of the Week is Lorena running back Braylon Henry, who in their game against Columbus, number 1 unbeaten Columbus, runs for 204 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground to pace the Leopards past the number 1 Columbus Cardinals. And now, by the way, Lorena gets a date with a team they've already beaten in Franklin, the 2-time defending champs. Watch this space. It'll be a lot of fun. Time for the play of the week. Tepper's play of the week. Let's talk about Anna and Frisco Panther Creek.
This one was insane.
This game was live on Dave Campbell's Texan Live. I had to find the Bally cut of this, which is fine because they cut it together with a bunch of different replays. But Anna is down with 10 seconds left functionally. Or no, about 33 seconds left, because it was Miller who scored with 10 seconds left to beat Victoria East, which that was a wild game too. But Anna is driving, needing a touchdown, or I think they needed a field goal to tie the game.
Yes, they needed a field goal to tie it.
And that is when Zyandre Williams dropped back and just looked for Jacob Emmers, who is not open. But that didn't stop him.
Williams on 3rd and 6. Fires down the left side. Hanging in the air. It is tipped and caught. Oh, I can't believe it. Jacob Emmers on the tip drill. Hauls in the touchdown pass. What a play. Wow.
Anna pulls a rabbit out of their hat with a come-from-behind win over Frisco Emerson to move on to the regional final. Thanks in large part to Jacob Emmers and his ridiculous
just insane
catch.
We lost our mind when we saw that.
Quick break for a hot take. Texas is probably going to get screwed for the college football playoff.
Yeah, with who Washington won.
Everyone won.
Which
That's
which hurt.
the problem. So here's the issue, okay?
And Florida State.
Here's the issue with Texas and what they're dealing with, okay? They have got the Big 12 championship game coming up this week. They're 11-1, and they are, in my opinion, big favorites to beat Oklahoma State.
Yes.
Who tried very hard to spit the bit.
Oh my God.
Tried very hard.
They won in a double overtime.
They win a double overtime
against BYU.
Yes. They are right now sitting 7th in the college football playoff. Now, that's going to change because Ohio State loses to Michigan. Who knows what they're going to do with Ohio State? Oregon and Washington are going to tee up again. So if they take care of business, they'll jump ahead of one of them. But here's the issue. Here's the issue for Texas. Georgia. Let's assume everything goes to chalk in the conference championship games.
Yes.
Okay. Georgia beats Alabama. Georgia's in. Any complaints there?
No, absolutely not.
Michigan's going to beat Iowa. Michigan's in. Anyone want to complain on that? The winner of Washington and Oregon's probably in.
Yeah,
right?
I think they have to.
If it's Washington, they'd be 13-0, and they'd be an undefeated conference champion, power conference champion for whatever the Pac-12 means at this point. They'd be 13-0. They're getting in. They're not getting left out. If it's Oregon, they will have knocked off avenged their only loss of the year, which is on the road, by the way. They will be 12-1 conference champion with their one loss, a loss they've already avenged. Right?
Yep.
So that's 3. The question for them and the real stubborn part of this for Texas is Florida State. Because Florida State plays Louisville. Now, Florida State is without their star quarterback. Jordan Travis got hurt. He had a pretty gruesome leg injury a couple weeks ago. It was ugly. But they beat Florida. If they beat Louisville this week, and they're favored to beat Louisville, in my opinion, even without Jordan Travis. If they beat Louisville this week, they will be an undefeated conference champion. Texas needs someone to lose.
Yeah.
Texas needs Alabama to beat Georgia, or Texas needs Iowa to no, never mind. Or Texas needs Louisville to beat.
I can't believe Iowa's in the Big Ten championship.
Or Texas needs Louisville to beat Florida State. Because
That-
otherwise, Texas has got number 5 written all over them.
Oh,
I hate
yeah.
to say it. I'm sorry. Because that would be a team that would be 11-1, 12-1 conference champion with a win at Alabama. But the way that the ranking, the CFP committee has set it up, it sets up for Texas to get left out.
Oh, yeah. I think the big one, I think that they'll still kind of mull back and forth if Louisville was to beat Florida State. But I think
Because then, by the way, Louisville would have an argument.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the thing, is then you would be ending up with a lot of ducks in the pond that have the argument, but it would be hard for the committee to talk their way around. If Alabama beats Georgia, it'll be a lot harder for the committee to talk them way around when Texas has that win over Alabama.
Right.
Like that's the best case scenario for them
yes.
is Alabama beating Georgia.
That's exactly right.
100%.
Best case scenario is Alabama beats Georgia.
Yes.
Second best case scenario, Louisville beats Florida State.
Yep. And that still makes me nervous.
You got to have at least one of those happen to have a chance, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So, just prepare yourself. Just letting you know. It's time for the hunt of the week. Huntsville 14, Richmond Randall 13. This is, like, you would look at this and be like, what's the big deal? Folks, Richmond Randall had already beaten Huntsville. Richmond Randall had already beaten Huntsville 3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Richmond Randall had already beaten Huntsville 3 weeks ago by 29 points.
Yep.
By 4 touchdowns. And Huntsville comes up with a virtuoso defensive performance and comes away with a 14-13 upset win. Just stunning. Stunning stuff. And certainly worthy of being the hunt of the week. Time for the wild stat of the week. I tweeted this out, but it's worth mentioning. So there was a 6-man football, a 1A Division 1, 1A Division 2 rather, regional final between Balmorhea and Klondike. Okay? Klondike gets the win. I think it was 100-66 was the final, something like that.
67, I think.
67. 167.
I believe.
Klondike gets a win there through the state semifinal. I want to talk about the two coaches. The head coach at Balmorhea is our good buddy Vance Jones. Mm-hmm. Vance Jones, the 6-man legend, 6-man icon, arguably a real argument to being the greatest 6-man football coach of all time.
Yes.
Vance Jones is 77 years old. Been around. He's forgotten more football than we'll ever know. He's an OG. The guy he coached against on Friday rather, was Dalton DeGraffenreid. Dalton DeGraffenreid, the head coach at Klondike,
has been there for 5 years.
5 years. He is 29.
Yes.
Which would mean
For 4
that
years.
when they towed up on Friday in Rankin, when they shook hands at midfield, there was a 48-year gap in age
That's crazy.
between Dalton DeGraffenreid and Vance Jones.
Vance Jones probably looked at
Same
Dalton
job.
DeGraffenreid and was like, "Are you a player?"
Yeah, what are you? And here's the funny thing. I would need to go back and look at this.
Mm-hmm.
There is a decent chance
That he coached
that
against
Vance
him.
Jones coached against Dalton DeGraffenreid, the player.
Who played at Klondike.
Who was the star at Klondike.
Yeah.
I remember covering Dalton DeGraffenreid because I'm old. Anyway, there's your wild stat of the week. Time for the Matt Step. He got that dog in him. Player of the week.
And now, the Matt Step. He got that dog in him. Player of the week.
Hey y'all, Matt Stepp with Dave Campbell's Texas Football, here to bring you, live from my truck, the winner of the regional semifinal, Matt Stepp, He Got That Dog in Him Award. And the winner of this week's Matt Stepp, He Got That Dog in Him Award is none other than DeSoto junior defensive end, Keelan Abrams. In DeSoto's 65-31 win over Willis on Friday night, Keelan had 3 sacks, multiple tackles for losses, and was generally just a terror for the Willis offensive line to handle. Keelan Abrams, you, sir, have got that dog in you. Congrats.
This has been the Matt Step He Got That Dog in Him Player of the Week.
Congratulations, Kaylin Abrams Soto, the winner of one of the most prestigious awards in Texas high school football.
Correct.
You have my attention. Comal ISD.
Mm-hmm.
Ashley Pickle. I went to a Coppell ISD school. Do you know how many teams Coppell ISD has in the regional finals?
None.
Wah, wah, wah. You went to Llano ISD school. How many teams does Llano ISD have in the regional finals?
They didn't even have a team in the playoffs.
Okay. Duncanville ISD. How many teams do they have in the regional final? One. Okay, great. Dallas ISD.
Ooh, one. Yeah.
Frisco ISD. One.
Panther Creek.
Panther Creek's last, or Emerson. Emerson's last one left. Yeah, Emerson's last one left. Right. Comal ISD doesn't have one. Doesn't have two. Comal ISD has 3 teams in the regional final. Smithson Valley, San Antonio Davenport, and San Antonio Piper, all into the regional final. They could have
2 of those very recent programs.
And 2 of them second-year varsity programs. And by the way, all 3 of them, I don't know if they'd be favored to have. All 3 of them could play at state.
Yes.
They're all in different brackets. But Comal ISD, keep an eye on them. They have my attention. Get excited for rematches. We got a bunch of them in the regional finals.
Yeah, we do.
A number of rematches across the state of Texas, including we get DeSoto Cedar Hill Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
We get Timpson Garrison Part 2. Right? We get Byron Nelson South Lake Carroll Part 2. It's on my brain. We get Lake Travis Westlake Part 2. We get North Shore Atascocita Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
We get Liberty Hill Piper Part 2. We get Forney Lancaster Part 2. Kilgore Chapel Hill Part 2. Brock Paradise Part 2. Franklin Lorena Part 2. Refugio Ganado Part 2.
Which, by the way, all of those games that you've mentioned, that's about 20% of the games.
A lot of games. There's 44 games.
Mm-hmm.
Good number of rematches in the regional final. Final thought. Coaches are people, too. So I mentioned that coming up here in just a moment, we're going to talk about the Texas A&M coaching change. There are a couple of other coaching changes across the state. Dana Holgerson got fired at Houston, and Dana Dimmel got fired at UTEP.
We went from 2 head coaches named Dana to 0 head coaches named Dana.
Tough day to be Dana.
Bad day to be a Dana.
And like, I understand that, like, we're all passionate about our football teams. Mm-hmm. But I think that it's just it's important to remember that these guys are like, this is their job, and like it's a guy getting, like, losing his job. I mention this because, and I hope Mike Craven doesn't mind me saying this, but Dana Dimmel reached out to Mike Craven this weekend after it happened, and just said, "Hey, I just want to thank you for the coverage." Even when I think he said something, even when you had to rip my ass a little bit. Mm-hmm. And it's tough sometimes. I think that it's important to remember that these guys have families. These guys, this is their livelihood. This is what they do for a living. And if I got fired from my job, I'm sure there would be some people who would dance on my grave, certainly. But all I'm saying is let's take a moment to remember that even when we think that our favorite football team should change coaches, that would require somebody losing their job.
Well, and I think we can be very candid and honest, too, about some things. Like, you look at Dana Dimmel, who that's a program that is hard to coach at. It's hard to recruit at. I've been to El Paso. I love El Paso. I'm the first person to say that. And, like, it stinks to watch that. That's a very different firing than a Jimbo Fisher who's getting paid $26,000 a day for the next 8 years to go away. Yeah. Those, I think that he can wipe away the comments with all of the bags of money that he's getting. Yeah. Dana Dimmel, it stinks when someone gets fired from a program that they poured a lot of heart
obviously
and soul
very clearly
into. Yeah, exactly.
Sure. Anyway, it's my final thought. That's Monday Morning Fallout. We're Texas Football Today. We're here every weekday at noon on TexasFootball.com, talking football in the Lone Star State. You can follow us on Twitter at DCTF, like us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Dave Campbell's. Follow us on Instagram, Instagram.com/Dave Campbell's, and, of course, see us at TexasFootball.com. Coming up here in just a moment, we'll talk with the head coach of the Port Lavaca Calhoun Sandcrabs. Coach Richard Whitaker will join us. But first, a word from these goods and services.
I feel like bustin' loose, bustin' loose. Come on, get on up. Oh yeah, get on up. Bustin' loose when you wanna sing. Bustin' loose, baby, do your thing. Talking about bustin' loose, yeah.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Potter, Executive Director of Be Well Texas. Too many people are struggling alone these days, and alcohol and drug deaths are increasing. We started Be Well Texas to offer high-quality, science-based addiction treatment and recovery services anywhere, even at home. We provide compassionate, caring support virtually or in person. In many cases, there is no cost for treatment if you don't have insurance. Really. Welcome to Be Well Texas. We're glad you're here.
Wing is the largest residential drone delivery provider in the world, delivering to your home in less than 30 minutes. Order using an app just like other popular delivery services, and Wing's automated drone takes care of the rest. It's fast, safe, and sustainable, and it's now delivering to parts of Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. You can learn more at wing.com/TexasFootball. Again, that's wing.com/TexasFootball.
Born and bred in Texas hits a little different, as it should. Texans love doing business with fellow Texans. VCR Now takes its Texas roots as seriously as its many partnerships with schools and universities around the state. It's also why we're so proud to promote our brand in the pages of the Texas Bible, Dave Campbell's Texas Football, and on the airwaves of Texas Football Today. Driven by producing quality broadcast video, state-of-the-art audio, and LED video scoreboards at affordable prices, VCR Now makes sure to listen to your needs in its athletic department before recommending the next best steps. Building great products is our business, and it's our focus on building meaningful, long-term partnerships with our clients that sets us apart. From our 24/7, 365-day help desk, the training lab in our hometown of Red Oak, or our sports marketing business plan that puts money back in the hands of our athletic departments we support, VCR Now is built to last. Reach out to us today at info@vcrnow.com or by calling 855-GO-VCR-NOW. Again, that's info@vcrnow.com or by calling 855-GO-VCR-NOW.
Pickle, let's go to the hotline. We're pleased to be joined by the regional final bound head coach of the Port Lavaca Calhoun Sand Grabs, Coach Richard Whitaker. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great today. How are you, sir?
Probably not as good as you guys are doing down there in Port Lavaca. How's the scene down there? How's the energy down there in Port Lavaca these days?
Well, it's great right now. You know, our community is very excited. It's been since 2018. We've had an opportunity to play in the state quarterfinals, and last Friday night was a huge win for our kids against a very good Alice team. And so right now the buzz is great and people's excited.
Well, and specifically, I want to go back to that win against Alice this past weekend. You guys knock them off 27-14. That was an Alice team that had been white hot, rolling in, especially offensively, and you guys were able to really get them to play your game. What was it going on Friday that really had you guys playing well?
Well, it's the first half, I'll tell you, we played about as good a football as we could play on both sides of the ball. Defensively, we get 2 or 3 big stops, one of them in the red zone on about the 10-yard line, fourth down. But we get 2 or 3 fourth down stops that were just, those are big momentum turners for us. And I tell you, I'm so proud of our little defensive kids. Alice is huge. Their offensive line's huge. They put big backs in the backfield in front of their quarterback, and they do a great job, have some tough schemes. And we got those stops, and offensively we were able to take the ball then and go score on all those possessions but one, and give us a chance to have a 21-0 lead at halftime. But I think it just defense set the tone, offense kind of followed suit, and then the second half it was kind of back and forth, each team, the second half until we finally got it put away there in the fourth quarter.
This is your 19th year there with Calhoun, and you guys you've had some really special years. You go back to what you guys were able to do in 2013. You mentioned 2018, a run to the regional final. This team, this 2023 team, I don't want to ask you to compare, but do you see similarities between this team and what they've got going, and some of those other great Sand Crabs teams that you've been able to put on the field?
Well, I was telling somebody this morning when I talked to the Rotary at the beginning of the year, I did compare this defense a lot to our 2013 defense. we're blessed to have some kids that have some mobility. We have a little quickness and speed on defense that we haven't had maybe in some of the previous years. So I felt like our defense had a chance to be a really special group, and they've lived up to that. They've done a great job. Offensively, we've had our moments this year. We our schedule's tough. Preseason's tough. We play a lot of good football teams, and we've had our moments where we sputtered on offense. But for the most part, when it mattered, we've got things going. So, you can look back and say we are similar to some of those teams. We're not as big. This is probably the smallest group we put on the field offensively. Our line is not as big as we have had in the past, but certainly these kids are operating very well right now, and hopefully we can have the same success we did back in those years.
Talking with Richard Whitaker, the head coach of the Port Lavaca Calhoun Sand Crabs here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation at hashtag TF Today. All right, Coach, one of the guys on that defense that has been such a leader for you guys is your junior, Colton Judd, a guy who is leading you in pretty much every statistical category defensively. But you mentioned you guys are undersized. He's 5'9", 200. He sure doesn't play like that. How important is he to what you guys do defensively to have you guys rolling right now?
Well, Coach is a very intelligent kid, first of all. He's a student of the game. Coach Selena, the defense staff, does a great job of preparing those kids, but he does a great job of, picking up on things. And certainly he's the guy that's kind of he's the quarterback on defense. He's getting the defense lined up and making the calls out there, and he's done a tremendous job all year long. And the surrounding cast surrounding his, again, they've all been wonderful. And Colton's a fine football player, and hopefully he'll have a big game this coming Friday.
Your leading rusher is Jace Campos, a guy who's going to go over 1,500 yards coming up here this week. He's got 21 touchdowns on the year. You guys spread the ball around a lot, obviously, in your double slot offense, but he's been the guy who's been kind of the bell cow back. Compared to some other guys that you've had toting the mail for you guys, how does Jace Campos compare?
Jace has been great. Last year we lost our fullback on the first day of practice, first day of pads. Our fullback broke his leg, and we struggled. We were, you guys kind of put us to dead out there. We were 0-7 and made a little run in the, 3-round run in the playoffs after that. So we had to. What we did, Jace was playing quarterback, and about middle of the season we flipped him from quarterback to fullback, which he had never played ever. And man, he did a great job and has accepted the role. And this year he came back. He's gotten stronger and bigger. And our offense starts with that fullback. That's where it starts. You've got to establish the fullback up inside, and a lot of it's going to be tough sledding. And Jace has given that to us. A lot of his runs against Alice of the night were, yak yards after contact. He'd get hit immediately and he'd pick up 3 or 4 yards. And that's staying ahead of the chains is a big part of our game, and having that big fullback it's a must for us to have success.
Coach, whenever we talk with coaches, obviously one of the guys that's at the central part of the offense is the quarterback. Needless to say, he's the guy who touches the ball the most. But in your offense, and a guy like Alex Parker, who is such an important part of them, it's such a different style of being important, right? He's thrown the ball all of 30 times this year, and yet he's so integral to what you do. How much have you seen this junior signal caller grow for you over the course of the year?
No, it's great. I mean, the last year, he was a sophomore when we brought him in last year. Very green, but he got going last year, and coming back, he had a lot of confidence from the beginning of the year this year. And the difference in us, and somebody asked me the other day, an option friend of mine from Louisiana said, "Coach, how much are y'all reading?" I said, "We probably read 90% of our plays." And so that's on the quarterback. And so when you look at teams that are spreading and throwing the ball, you think, well, that quarterback's probably got 3 or 4 seconds to make a decision back there. In our offense, our quarterback's got less than a second to make the right decision. And Parker has done a great job of putting the ball in the right places, and that's so key for us. He's making good reads and putting the ball around like I said, where it's supposed to be, and that's just what makes us go. It's hard to take away all 3 options, and if he's doing the right thing, then it puts a lot of pressure on defenses.
Richard Whitaker of the Calhoun Sand Crabs joining us. Coach, it's going down Friday at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio as Port Lavaca Calhoun, who's been playing football since 1914, will take on San Antonio Davenport, who's been playing football since, let me check my notes here, 2022. 2 pretty disparate programs here as far as pedigree is concerned. I know you've been in the film room getting to know this Davenport team. What do you see on film, and what are you looking for on Friday?
Yeah, I always get a kick out of you guys talking about these new schools like that. But I mean, they just won state in volleyball a couple of weeks ago, so they've already got some tradition going there in athletics at Davenport High School. Tremendous athletes. It all starts with their quarterback. Man, he just distributes the ball so well. They run a lot of the reads, the play action reads and things like that, where he just does a great job of seeing what the defense is doing and what he's giving them. And has a nice touch on his deep ball. But they have tremendous athletes, great quickness on defense. When you go back and look at some of their latter games, like the Beeville game or the Lavernia game, they're striking quick. I think they scored 4 touchdowns in the first 7 plays of the Beeville game. They're up on Lavernia 17-0 before Lavernia, scored last week. So those guys are out of the gates fast, and that's what they want to do. They want to be explosive. For us, it's going to be we need to take the air out of the ball and try to keep those guys on the sideline as much as we can to give ourselves a chance.
He's Richard Whitaker. He is busy on Friday night. Don't call him. He's going to be busy coaching his Port Lavaca Calhoun Sandcrabs against the San Antonio Davenport squad at the Alamo Dome on Friday night. Coach, we sure appreciate your time. Congratulations again on all your success so far, and best of luck on Friday night in the Dome.
Well, thank you for all you do. We appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. Thanks, Coach. There he goes. Richard Whitaker, head coach of Port Lavaca Calhoun Sandcrabs. Couple small notes there. One that I was making. One, he was like, I was just proud of our little guys out there.
Yeah.
And now he's right. Compared, Alice was enormous.
Huge.
Alice had enormous just team size, right? But Calhoun, that's kind of what they do. They make the best of it, and schematically they're just so sound, and they came up with big plays. The other thing I just get a kick out of, it's the most Texas high school football thing I think you could possibly say, is he's like,
when I was talking to the Rotary
talk to the Rotary in
Club.
the preseason, and I'm like, that's the kind of thing that you're talking about a 4A school, 4A town. You're like, yep, probably August 12th. You got a date with the Rotary. Probably gonna go eat lunch with them. And
That or
about,
the
about
Lions
the
Club, like
either
either
yeah,
one.
Absolutely. He's been doing that a long time, and I'll tell you, that is one of the toughest games to call this week. Davenport Calhoun,
yeah,
because Davenport's obviously brimming with confidence, and like the playmakers they've got on that team are very dangerous and sound. Calhoun plays such a wild and different style of football.
They're the crazy man in the fight.
They run a double slot offense, and Steph and I have talked about this a lot. It's an offense that I don't think anyone else runs, right? Like, we all got impressed with, like, Gunner whenever they came about in that kind of that pistol option offense and stuff. And now there's a fair number of teams that run that, right? It's kind of a copycat league.
Theirs is still impressive because they run it
it's
so
still
well.
Of course.
But
right. Same thing with Liberty Hill. There's teams that
run the slot
team.
team.
They run the slot team, but they don't run it like Liberty Hill. I mean this sincerely. I would need somebody to point out another team that runs the double slot.
Yes.
It's just a functionally different offense. And so it's dangerous, and their defense is playing great ball right now. Keep an eye on this one. That is a huge game of the Alamo Dome Saturday night, and I think it's one of the hardest games to call. So keep an eye on that one. We appreciate Coach Coach Richard Whitaker of Port Lavaca Calhoun, who might as well be named.
He might. I was just going to say, if he wins and gets them into the state semifinal, he might be Coach Port Lavaca for as long as he wins.
He's been there for 2 decades. He is inextricable from that program. Anyway, we appreciate Coach Richard Whitaker's time. We're at Texas Football Today. We're here every weekday at noon on TexasFootball.com, talking football in Lone Star State. You can follow us on Twitter at DCTF, like us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Dave Campbell's. Follow us on Instagram, Instagram.com/Dave Campbell's, and of course, see us at TexasFootball.com. Coming up here in just a moment, there's a new employee of the Texas A&M University system. We'll talk about him and all the things that went into him getting hired. But first, let's find out who's up for the Mr. Texas Football Player of the Week Award.
Dave Campbell's Texas Football, in conjunction with the TaxAct Texas Bowl, is proud to give the Mr. Texas Football Player of the Week Award, presented by Kroger, to the most deserving high schooler in the state of Texas. Each week, TexasFootball.com announces 10 candidates for that week's award based on the previous week's on-field performance. Congratulations to this week's 10 nominees. Fans, be sure to vote for the player you believe should be the Mr. Texas Football Player of the Week at TexasFootball.com. Voting closes Friday at noon, with the winner announced shortly after on TexasFootball.com. Thanks to Kroger and the TaxAct Texas Bowl for their continued support of Texas high school football and the Mr. Texas Football Player of the Week Award.
All right, Pickle. There were some other headlines across the state of Texas this weekend. Some which ended up being true and some which ended up not being true.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about what's happening at Texas A&M. If you haven't heard, Texas A&M a couple weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, fired their head coach Jimbo Fisher.
Yes.
They left it in the capable hands of Elijah Robinson, their one of their defensive assistants, to be their interim head coach. They go 1-1 to finish the season, finish the year 7-5. I would say, we talked about when Jimbo Fisher was fired, I would say that 7-5 would be categorized as a disappointing season for Texas A&M.
Yes.
They were a team that was expected to at least kind of go blow for blow with some of the teams at the top of the conference, and they didn't do that. Jimbo Fisher now out of a job, not sure he minds.
No, I don't think so.
So Texas A&M has now made a hire. This came down officially today, that the new head coach of the Texas A&M Aggies will be Mike Elko. Mike Elko is a name that may ring a bell, not just because for the past couple of years he's been the head coach at Duke, but before that he was the defensive coordinator for Jimbo Fisher for his first 4 seasons at the helm. He was, for 2018 to 2022, he was the defensive coordinator for Texas A&M. He came over after a year at Notre Dame, where he put together a really good defense. The couple years before that, he was the defensive coordinator at Wake Forest. He's been a lifetime defensive guy. If you're interested, he did play football at Penn, and he was a safety there. He's a New Jersey guy, originally. Mike Elko is a name that had been bandied about pretty much immediately as soon as Jimbo Fisher was fired, because he kind of ticks a lot of the boxes now. I would say that when he left in 2021, he did not tick all the boxes, specifically because he'd never been a head coach.
Right.
At any level, anywhere.
Yes.
He'd be a all-time, defensive coordinator, or defensive assistant, I should say. He'd never been a head coach. Now he goes to Duke, and at Duke, he goes 16-9 in 2 seasons, which, taking over for David Cutcliffe, that first year they go 9-4. They win their bowl game, so they go 8-4 in the regular season, then 7-5 this past year, which at Duke, not bad.
That's a basketball school.
Not bad.
Through basketball school.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty good. But he now has 2 seasons as a head coach under his belt. That is apparently, for the powers that be at Texas A&M, that is enough of proof of concept to make him the head coach. But more importantly, let's not mince words. This is about what he did as defensive coordinator at Texas A&M.
Yes.
This is, in some respects, functionally a souped-up promotion.
Yeah, because had he gone to, he was the Baylor DC forever and did something good, then went to Duke, A&M wouldn't have any ties to him.
No, exactly right. I don't think then he would be the hot name and the clear connection that Texas A&M was making.
There was a familiarity aspect.
There's familiarity because he'd been there for 4 years. And by the way, been pretty darn good as defensive coordinator. He's a guy who's well respected as far as the defensive mind is concerned. It is interesting that this is... What a good question, Greg. This is the first defensive guy that they have hired as their head coach. Francione? I think that might be right. Dennis Francione was a defensive guy. Or no, he was an offensive guy too. He was an offensive coordinator. It's been a minute since they've hired a defensive guy. Jimbo Fisher was an offensive guy. Kevin Sumlin was an offensive guy. Mike Sherman was an offensive guy. Dennis Francione was an offensive guy. It's been a minute since they've hired a defensive guy. But that's obviously where they want to go. If you're looking for just a quick take on Mike Elko, yeah, good job. Like, to me, this was one on the short list of obvious candidates, and it ticks a lot of boxes. I think it is important to make sure that you are, like, I am interested to see, this is a real test case to see how much the brand of Texas A&M does from a recruiting perspective. Mike Elko was a good recruiter when he was at Texas A&M, but he was not like known as like the recruiting ace. He was a good recruiter, but the whole program was a good recruiter, right? At Duke, he did fine at recruiting for Duke.
Right.
You know what I mean? The idea here from the Texas A&M board and from ostensibly athletic director Ross Bjork is that they believe that, he's shown enough of proof of concept at Duke that we think he can come here and soup up what he was doing at Duke and with these facilities and with these resources, take them to the next level. Because make no mistake, this is like the goal for Texas A&M, while the head coach has changed, has not changed.
Mm-mm.
They expect you to contend for a national championship. And that is the charge for Mike Elko, is to put them in the national championship conversation. Now that gets a little bit easier because you only got to finish in the top 12 now. You got to be one of the 12, got to be in the mix for the 12-team playoff. But for Texas A&M, this is in many respects a bit of an anti-Jimbo hire.
Yes.
This hire probably is closer to, I guess it's closer to someone than it is to Jimbo.
Yeah, which also wasn't great, but
right. It's probably like the parallel is probably Dennis Franchione. As far as now, he had more head coaching experience. He was the head coach at TCU and the head coach at Alabama for a couple of years before he came to Texas A&M. That's probably the closer comparison. But this is, in many respects, a much more standard hire than Jimbo. Mm-hmm. Jimbo was the big, splashy hire, like, oh my gosh, like they're splashing cash. We're making serious inroads. This is the guy who's going to take it. Mike Elko would fall more in the category of like, and A&M fans are going to wince when I say this, it's hiring a guy like Steve Sarkisian.
Yep.
Guy who's got some head coaching experience, known as a great coordinator. Bring him in. We think he can take him to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more kind of like rote hire. It's not that kind of jazzy, splashy hire that Jimbo Fisher was.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as Mike Elko is concerned, initial thoughts, I think you need to make sure you retain Elijah Robinson. Probably make him defensive coordinator, in my opinion. Make him defensive coordinator. The offensive coordinator spot is going to be really interesting.
Yes.
I'm very intrigued to see where they go with the offensive coordinator.
Which is funny because if you're making the Sark comparison again, that's exactly what we said in the opposite fashion from Sark.
Is
offensively makes perfect sense. Who does he hire for defensive coordinator?
This is a guy who is full on defense.
Yes.
Who does he go?
And A&M wants, I'm sure they want him to be full on defense.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
the whole
yeah.
point.
Yeah. I mean, they want him to have a hand in the defensive side, but then to be the CEO.
Mm-hmm.
I think that part of this, like we talked about, when you break up with a girl,
yep.
you go and you date a girl who's exactly the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Jimbo Fisher, one of the knocks on him was because he was calling plays, he wasn't a great CEO.
Yes.
I think that they want to, I think promoting Elijah Robinson to be defensive coordinator and then allowing him to be that CEO guy who still has a hand in the defense,
mm-hmm.
which is kind of Saban-esque.
Yes.
I think that's what they're looking for here. Offensive coordinator is now the really interesting question there at A&M. So they land on Mike Elko. That was not the case 48 hours ago. Because Saturday, reports start coming out that Texas A&M is going to hire Mark Stoops. Mark Stoops is the head coach at Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the idea of hiring Mark Stoops was a little bit more. That's a little bit like. I think that I understand what they're going for here. This is a guy who is at a basketball school in Kentucky,
mm-hmm.
has done good things there, helped build them into perennially a lot better than they were than before he showed up.
By far.
Quite certainly. And the idea would be, if we move him from a place where he can be the king of the castle, right there he's second place to John Calipari forever.
Yes.
Because it's a basketball school. If he comes here, he's the king of the castle, and he can take that 7-5, 8-4 that they usually are, and then go to the moon.
Yes.
So reports start coming out, and our own Mike Craven confirms it, that they're going to hire Mark Stoops. There's too many Stoops.
There
Mark
are
Stoops.
many Stoops.
And what happens after that, I think, can only be described as a revolt. Because social media lights up, and Aggie social media and Aggie Nation, the Aggie universe, the 12th man awakens and essentially in unison goes, wait, what?
Yep.
We fired Jimbo Fisher and paid him $76 million to go away to hire Kentucky's coach?
Yep.
A guy who's 20 games under 500 in the SEC? Now, I think that is not a fair description of Mark Stoops, in my opinion. I think that you have to consider the circumstances there, and he took over a cellar dweller and turned them into a middle-of-the-pack SEC East team, which is a decent accomplishment.
I was going to say, how actually high is the ceiling there?
Correct.
It's about there.
I think he's reached his ceiling.
Yeah.
With that said,
comparing ceilings is a huge part of making a decision.
Correct. With that said, A&M fans were not having it.
No, they were
and
not.
they were not happy about this. And by the way, I think there's going to be this notion of like, oh, all these reporters were wrong. Mike Craven was wrong. Like Bruce Feldman, I don't know if Bruce Feldman reported. Bruce Feldman, Pete Thamel, all these guys were wrong. I'm here to tell you the TikTok of this thing is that it was going to be Mark Stoops. They did not have all the ducks in a row when that got out. It was not a done deal. They heard the outrage, and they backed off. Now, Mark Stoops put out a statement saying, yes, I was contacted, but I just love Big Blue Nation, and I want to stay here.
Yeah. Which just gives him more bona fides to his program right now.
What else do you want him to say?
Yeah, there's nothing
yes,
else
I was
you
going
can.
to leave, and then they pulled the offer?
Yeah.
Because that's functionally what happened. Is that A&M heard from their from the power brokers, which is not just the fans, but specifically the donors. And they were like, no, absolutely not. We don't want Mark Stoops. He got Greg Schiano'd. Maybe you remember, maybe you're too young to remember, a couple of years ago, when Greg Schiano was going to be the next head coach at Tennessee. He was going to be the next head coach at Tennessee. It was done and dusted. It had basically been announced that he was going to be the next head coach at Tennessee. And then, because he had been connected now, and I'm not saying this is the same thing with Mark Stoops, to be clear. I'm drawing a different comparison. He had been connected to the Penn State scandal, and Tennessee fans were absolutely outraged. Absolutely outraged, and said, no. We don't want Greg Schiano. We want somebody else. They ended up hiring, I believe it was, I think it's Josh Heupel. That's who they have now. They had hired Josh Heupel. This is not the same as that, okay?
No.
Because there was I think more of a moral outrage towards Greg Schiano. Mark Stoops hasn't done anything wrong.
No.
It's just he's not up to the standards that A&M fans wanted. But make no mistake, Aggie fans got A&M to back off hiring Mark Stoops. That's like functionally a part of the public record at this point. And now, what does that say about Ross Bjork? What does that say about the Aggie alignment? What does that say about all those things? That's a topic for another day, and certainly listen to Republic of Football for that. But it is a remarkable story that ends in my opinion, they ended up backing into a good decision.
Yep.
I'm not saying Mark Stoops would have been a bad call. But I think Mike Elko was a much more obvious choice for a lot of reasons.
It just makes you wonder why, like what, I would love to be a fly on the wall and know what the decision was to not go with Elko in the first part.
Yeah.
Like just what was it? And I don't know, but it would be interesting to know. And I don't think anybody will ever officially know, but it'll be interesting to just to hear.
There'll be a book written in 10 years about it. But I don't get it. I thought to me there were two choices. if you couldn't, and there were always people saying, oh, they're going to swing for Ryan Day at Ohio State, or they're going to swing for Dan Lanning at Oregon, right?
Yeah, there was.
I mean, they probably swung.
Yeah.
They probably asked, right?
Yep.
All I'm here to say is that I thought there were 2 pretty clear options, in my opinion. 3 if you want to include promoting Elijah Robinson, which wouldn't have been the worst idea in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they were Mike Elko or Jeff Traylor. They ended up with Mike Elko. All's well that ends well, but it wasn't without its speed bumps on the way to College Station. Anyway, there's your recap of a wild weekend in Aggie. Let's go over to Ashley Pickle for America's second favorite segment. Final thoughts.
That was not the only coaching change yesterday. Obviously, you alluded to him. We'll be talking about him a little bit more as the week goes on here. But if you're interested on candidates for some of the open jobs, go to TexasFootball.com. Craven-ish, Mallory Carter were busting their butts yesterday. Will Wilkerson to get all that information out as our college football team. So if you're interested in potential candidates for the jobs now open, head over to TexasFootball.com.
It's going to do it for us. Thanks for spending a little bit of your day with us. Follow us on Twitter at DCTF. Like us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Dave Campbell. Follow us on Instagram, Instagram.com/Dave Campbell. And, of course, see us at TexasFootball.com. Thanks again to Port Lavaca Calhoun head coach Richard Whitaker.
That's really got you today.
It really does. For being our guest. For Ashley Pickle, I'm Greg Tepper. Vince Young, please get your Player of the Year trophy. We'll see you tomorrow on Texas Football Today.